Growing up, I had fairly diverse interests owing to my isolated and rustic childhood in a remote village in Palakkad. I read eclectically and indiscriminately. I used to keep 3 books beside my pillow: J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan, Johann Ashpiri's Heidi, and M.T. Vasudevan Nayar's Randamudam. These were only 3 out of the several novels I had reread, but I wanted to drift off to sleep after reading these 3 books specifically because the worlds the authors created using words were magical, dreamy, transporting, and comforting to my young mind. These authors' world building impressed my imagination so much that I wanted to create worlds of my own through stories. I was introduced to classical Indian music and dance in early childhood. My maternal uncles used to take me to South Indian classical music concerts. The spontaneous melodic improvisations and rhythmic intricacies fascinated me. I vividly remember the first day of my Veena training where I heard the sound of Anusarani, the 2nd string, followed by Sarani, the 1st string, for the first time. I thought if Break of Dawn ever had a sound, that would sound like this. And I still stand by that. One of the most thrilling moments on stage as a classical Indian dancer was portraying a young Kunti from the Indian epic Mahabharata. In the final act, Kunti places her newborn baby boy Karna in the crate and lets the crate afloat on the mighty river Ganga. Then, perhaps as an afterthought, she runs and wades the river, reaches for the crate, embraces the crate in the middle of the river, plants a final kiss on his tiny forehead, gently places him back in the crate, and lets the crate afloat on the river again. She then walks back without taking her eyes off the crate that's floating away, crying. The depth of guilt, loss, and helplessness in her eyes on giving up her firstborn. I'm on the stage with tears rolling down my face and the curtain falls. That was a priceless emotional experience to embody such a strong and nuanced character. My mother and maternal uncles gave me intellectual respect for my artistic interests while growing up, which allowed me to have early immersive artistic experiences that broadened my mind. However, as the years advanced, my artistic explorations became very limited. I almost stopped dancing and singing. I practiced Veena only so much to do well in my bachelor's and master's degree programs, which I pursued in tandem with my medical school training. I did not play music for myself, and I did not feel particularly brave to write after a few rejections. Cut to 2018, in medical school, I went through this phase of physician burnout where I experienced a sense of depersonalization and exhaustion. During this phase, every day I returned from the hospital so tired that I had no energy or time left to reach out to family or friends. I'd shower, eat, and sleep as soon as I could because I had to wake up early the next day morning to go to the hospital again. I felt the loneliest in my life during this phase. One day I returned from work and I felt there was a lump in my throat and I broke down. That day, after a very long while I finally decided to crawl back into the sacred sanctum of music. I played my veena, not for a test, not for an audience, but for myself. And that was a remarkably cathartic moment. That night, I slept hugging my veena. Cut to 2020, I was pursuing my first year of PhD in music right out of medical school training. So that was a new and different space. Academically, I was having a hard time publishing my research manuscripts. None of my research manuscripts were finding a home. And that was, I was also doing something I shouldn't have quite done. I was actually looking into my peers who were publishing their research articles in high impact factor journals, one after the other. I was genuinely happy and proud of them. But it felt like, we were together at a traffic signal, and when the lights turned green, my vehicle wasn't just starting. And everyone else in the lane moved ahead, and all I could hear was the loud, angry honking. That was stressful. I felt discouraged, and I started to think maybe my writing wasn't good enough. That was when I received a newsletter from Stanford Medicine about a weekly virtual reflective writing session called Writing Medicine. I attended that week, and the next week, and then the next week. There was a reason why I was tuning in every week. The sessions began with Laurel Braitman, our writing mentor, reading out a set of rules. One of the most important rules was to not apologize for anything. And then she would give us a prompt and a few minutes to write. Volunteers can read out. And after someone reads out, fellow writers would pour their cheers into the chat box. There was a sense of community and connectedness. It was a creative space where I could find relatability and support. That Saturday, Laurel came online wearing her big, round, brown hat and infectious smile and gave us a prompt. Describe your favorite sound in the world to someone who cannot hear. That was the first time I thought of something like that. And it left me thinking even after the session ended. After a few days, I wrote my thoughts down, describing the sound of heartbeats through sight, smell, taste, and touch. While incorporating sensory details for this article, I subliminally accessed several beautiful vignettes from my memory. The squelch of the feet when you walk on mud that got wet in the first rain. The intoxicating fragrance of homegrown jasmines. The tickle that you feel when little fish nibble on your feet. This simple process of actively imagining and browsing through happy memories felt like a sacred escape. It was like building a bridge to myself, or like walking through a delightful, brief, well-designed, lucid dream. This process inspired me to restart writing stories for myself and share them. And I claimed my pen back and restarted writing stories, as much to my amusement. And that fiction piece I wrote found a home. Publishing further instilled a sense of confidence. Kintsugi, which translates to golden joinery, is the centuries-old Japanese art of fixing broken potteries by mending the areas of breakage using magnificent powdered gold, accentuating imperfections as a critical element of its unique history rather than concealing them. The intimate metaphoric narrative is to celebrate the beauty of survival and fortitude. Kintsugi offers a refuge from what society has indoctrinated us, worshipping infallibility, the aspiration to have perfection. Who defines perfection? Who can tell what is perfect? How about finding beauty in asymmetry, transience, and imperfections? How about finding beauty in the intricacies of the veins of an old mango leaf? Do we subconsciously seek perfection? In a conversation with The New Yorker in 2013, Dr. Daniel Levitin, a neuroscientist, discusses that when they gave listeners two versions of Chopin, one played by a pianist with enough rubato and musical italicizing, indicating the presence of human hands, and the second, a perfectly played computer-programmed Chopin, they found that people liked the human hands, the one with the nuances. When I started learning the veena, my left hand's index and middle fingertips that ran along the fretboard developed blisters due to repeated friction on the skin. Over the years, my fingertips developed calluses. To me, calluses are a mark that I continue to practice after making mistakes. Calluses are a mark of persistence and endurance. These calluses protect my fingertips now. How magical would it be if we rejoined our cracks through arts, just like magnificent powdered gold? If you have relished a form of creative expression at any stage in your life, there wouldn't be a better time to embrace it than today. You might have kept it on the back burner, but please embrace your creative outlets. And you don't have to be a Vincent van Gogh to paint, Michelangelo to sculpt, or a recording artist to sing. Remember that violin that you bought for a music class that you attended only for a few weeks? Remember that 8-lined poetry that you penned down on the last page of your rough book? Remember that clay model that you crafted in school with all your heart and did not win in that competition? Remember that origami bird that you made for your baby sister to make her smile? Let's start from there. Start small. Find your old watercolor tray, musical instrument, or anklets. It's time to dust them off. Sit with them a couple of days every week. Add a little life to the lives we live. Invest a few minutes, couple of days every week to reacquaint and recalibrate with yourself. And this small habit makes a big difference. Art is a conduit to define oneself with much more clarity and accuracy. And there is so much autonomy and freedom in expressing oneself through arts. Let's be kind to ourselves. When you lose yourself in a dark labyrinth, know an old torch is in your reach. Go for it. It might help you navigate through the maze this time without losing yourself. Though it took some time, my research manuscripts eventually found a home. And in the meantime, I created some interesting worlds through words that I'd like to reread, learned a few new musical compositions, and danced like no one's watching. I guess in this journey, I became more emotionally resilient and tenacious. Embrace your creative outlets now more than ever.